Mom Workshop Wednesdays. This evening, our subject for tonight will be Home Ownership 101. My name is Brittney Russell, and I am a member here at Friendship. I am the Director of Family Life, but in my life outside the church, I am the Executive Director of the Nassau County Land Bank. And just to give a little history and background on the Land Bank is a nonprofit public authority that is charged with rectifying blight in communities and building affordable housing for people across Nassau County. There are land banks all throughout the nation, but obviously the Nassau County Land Bank focuses solely on Nassau County. So a lot of the information that you will receive this evening is derived from my experience in that role. So to begin tonight, I wanted to start off and talk about home ownership being biblical. Homeownership is biblical, and we have two verses of scripture here. If you look at your handout, everyone that came in should have received one. First, Jeremiah 29:5. In that verse, it states that build houses and live in them, plant gardens and eat their produce. So here we see in the text that the word mentions build houses and live in them. So we know this is a concept that is not just brand new. It's a concept that's been around even before Christ, that individuals were building homes, owning homes, and living in their own homes. And additionally, when I first actually started this lesson, the scripture that really came to mind was Deuteronomy 11:31, which states in the HCSB version, "For you are about to cross the Jordan to enter and take possession of the land the Lord your God has given you, when you possess it and settle in it." And we know this is from the last book of the Pentateuch, and this is when God was speaking to Moses and informing him that they were on their way to that promised land. And these are the instructions once you get to that place. So God wanted them to take possession of the land and to settle in it, to live in it. And in order to do that, they were going to have to do exactly what Jeremiah 29:5 stated, which was to build homes and live in them. So we need to take those same concepts and mirror them to our lives today. Because oftentimes, we get settled in, renting, but it's now a time where we need to take those finances and make the shift towards home ownership, which also builds your equity, which also builds your net worth, and gives you something to have that can help you with retirement, etc. So, moving on, in order to get to that place where you are able to purchase a home, preparation is key. You're not going to just say today, make the decision, I want to own a home, and then purchase it tomorrow unless you have about $1 billion probably laying around in cash or some exorbitant amount of money. In order to get to that place, you're going to need to prepare yourself. So this evening, we're going to talk about 7 steps that you need to follow in order to get to that place to prepare yourself in order to own a home. So these steps are to check your credit and work on it if necessary, determine a budget, get your assets in place, shop multiple lenders and get pre-approved, hire a real estate agent, put contingencies in writing, keep the status quo of your finances. And if you do all of these 7 steps, you'll be able to get that dream key to your own home. So the first step is to check your credit. And in each one of these steps, I put in a timeline, and I would begin to start that process about 12 months to a year outside of thinking that you want to own a home. Because if you have anything in your credit report that is negative, it's going to take time to get it removed, so you want to start on that process today. So the first thing potential home buyers should do is pull their credit report and scores to see where they stand. But that credit report is also going to be important in your credit score because it's going to determine your interest rate. You can have a 4% interest rate or a 9% interest rate, and that may mean an extra hundreds of thousands of dollars that you're going to be putting towards just interest that the bank is getting, and it's not going towards the building the equity in your home or towards the principal or the balance on the home. So it's very important to take a look at your score because you're going to want to make sure you're not just throwing money down the drain.
Right.
So once you take a look at your score to see where you stand, you're going to want to begin to work on it if it's not in that higher range. You're going to want to begin to work on getting it towards, the 7s and the 8s in order to make sure that you're going to get the best interest rate possible. So once you look at the credit report, you're going to also check for errors. There can often be errors on the credit report, and what you're going to do from that place is begin to either contact whoever the lender was, or whoever the individual or the corporation is that put this error on your report, and try to see if you can correct that. If there are any past due accounts that may have gone to collections, you're going to want to rectify those as well. Once you rectify those, your score will begin to increase. And you're going to want to do this because these type of liabilities, like I said, will hinder you and even be able to qualify for a home loan. Because if you have continuous items going into collection, why would someone want to give you hundreds of thousands of dollars to put towards a home? And if they do give it to you, like I said again, it's going to come with a high price in terms of the interest rate. Last tip that I have with regards to checking your credit, which I found works best for me, is I downloaded an app, Credit Karma and Credit Sesame, and I keep those on my phone. And anytime there is any change or shift in my credit, I get an email and I get an alert on my phone. Mm-hmm. So whether it's the addition of a new account, or there's a change in the score, you will receive an alert. The score is also updated continuously. I know for Credit Karma they use, I believe, the TransUnion and Equifax score, and Credit Sesame is just one score that you'll see there. But they also will give you tips on how to increase your credit score. So, they'll show you the debt that you have. If you have credit card debt or some other type of debt, and they'll show you if you pay XYZ amount of school, go up 10 points or 20 points or 50 points even. So they will give you the opportunity to figure out how to best increase your credit score, because as we know, that is important. And again, like I said, you want to begin this as early as possible. So today you're in class, you said to myself, I want to buy a house next summer. You're going to want to start that process today. The next thing you're going to want to do after you look at your credit report and you begin to work on it is determine your budget. And this is one of the pitfalls with home ownership, because often we think just the mortgage is what you have to really account for. And with a home, a lot more comes with it. And even just the payment that you're going to make for the month. It's not just the principal that's on the home, but you also have to take into account the interest. You have to take into account taxes and insurance. And that's discounting the fact that you also have to pay cable, there may be a landscaper, what if the boiler goes out. So you want to make sure that you're taking into account the fact that you are going to have some financial obligations that are not just limited to the principal on the home, to the basic mortgage on the home. So you want to take out, a budget sheet and really map out your monthly expenses so you can determine exactly what you can afford. Because the worst thing you can do is make yourself house poor, which means everything that's coming in is automatically going out. Because then you won't have any reserves or contingencies just in case something does happen. And unlike renting, you can't call the landlord, you can't call the super. If there's a leak, you got to figure it out yourself and call a plumber or another professional. So you're going to want to make sure that you do that. So in addition to the principal, the interest, and taxes that you're going to want to take into consideration, you're going to want to take into consideration your cell phone bill, potential utilities, and with utilities, you're likely to have a greater bill than you have renting the apartment that you have now. You want to take into consideration daycare, tuition, groceries, car payments, car insurance, and other fixed monthly bills in order to determine the budget that you can afford. But this is also going to be important when you take into account your down payment. So typically a down payment on a home is probably somewhere between 10 to 20%. It really depends on the lender. It depends on the type of home. I know if you're going to buy a condo or co-op, they're going to want more likely 20 to 25% down. But you're going to want to take this into consideration because a lot of times what first-time home buyers do is they'll max out their savings for their down payment. And that's also an issue as a pitfall because no matter what type of home you get, there are going to be new or additional expenses once you move into the home. whether it's furniture or, you know, something that you wanted to modify when you get in the home. It's very important to, when you're assessing your budget, that you also take into consideration your down payment, because you don't want to max out all those savings and all the finances that you have initially. And again, you want to start this process into determining your budget 6 to 8 months out, so you can really have an understanding of what you can afford. And for me, what I think is best is if you say, I can afford a $2,000 mortgage, and right now your rent is $1,000, over the course of those 6 to 8 months, act like you're paying the mortgage, and you're going to save that extra $1,000, so your mind and your pockets are getting ready to understand this is how much I'm going to be kicking out every month, because you want to get used to it, or it's going to be a shock when you get to that place 6 to 8 months later. So once you determine your budget and how much you think you can afford in monthly payments, you're going to want to get your assets in place. And you're going to want to begin to get your assets in place about 2 to 3 months outside of looking for a home. And what that means is you're going to want to look at your bank statements for the last few months, because that's what the lender is going to be looking at. What are you spending your money on? And you're going to want to, if you're going to make any large deposits or large withdrawals, you're going to want to make those at least 60 days prior to looking for a mortgage or trying to get pre-approved for a mortgage, or the bank is going to scrutinize, like, where did this $5,000 come from, or where did it go to? They're going to want to know exactly how you're spending that money, how you're spending your money, so they want to make sure they get their money. So you're going to want to make sure you get your assets in place in that manner, and also make sure you're not opening up new credit lines. So not buying a brand new car 2 or 3 months before you're about to buy a house, not applying for 6, 7 credit cards, or even a credit card at all a few months before you buy a house, because that debt to income ratio is very important. So you're going to want to make sure that 2 to 3 months out, you're keeping everything status quo, so that when you submit your bank statements to the bank, there are no red flags. So once you figure out your assets, then you're going to want to start working on the process of getting pre-approved. So, my suggestion is to shop multiple lenders. Multiple lender shopping is important because it's like a negotiating tool. It also will allow you to see, the different interest rates that they're charging and what perks come with different lenders. So, they have, you'll see probably on TV, Rocket Mortgage, where, you get, I wouldn't do that, but you're going to want to take a look at different banks and what they're offering, the different interest rates, because, like I said, that's very important, and how really their mortgages are structured, so that you know what best works for you. So, I would say compare mortgage rates from different types of lenders and assess whether it is a good time to lock in your rate, because that's going to be important, because as you all know, interest rates fluctuate day by day depending on the government. So you're going to want to be sure that you're locking in your rate. You're going to want to look at the loan fees, because there are fees that are going to come with taking out the loan from the bank. So, and they vary from bank to bank, so that's going to be important for you to focus on as well as the customer service. You don't want a bank where you can't get anybody on the phone. You want to be able to have a relationship with your bank, with your banker, because that's going to be very important, especially for a new, first-time homeowner. It's going to be very important for you to be able to have that relationship as you go through. Also, like I said, in that step, you're going to want to get pre-approved. Pre-approvals usually expire for 90 days, but pre-approvals are very important because, honestly, no real estate agent is really going to want to talk to you unless you're pre-approved. Because why would I want to have a conversation with you unless I know that you can actually qualify for a mortgage? If you can't qualify for a mortgage, it's fun to, go look at houses, but if you can't qualify for the mortgage, what are you really doing? It's just an exercise. So they're going to want to know that you can actually afford the house that they're taking you to. So it's important to have those pre-approvals in place. And once you have the pre-approval from the bank, then it's time to find a home. Now this pre-approval process, you're going to want to start that process about 2 months out. As I said, they expire after 90 days. You want to give yourself some time, because you're going to be shopping on multiple lenders. You're going to be looking at the different rates for for the mortgages and the fees. So it's important to start that process early and not at the last minute. And once you have that pre-approval, the next thing is to hire a real estate agent. You're going to want to hire a real estate agent, I would say, because they're going to help you navigate through this process. If you're a first-time home buyer, you don't know what it takes in order to get to that closing. So you're going to want to hire a professional, just like you would hire a professional to change your oil and change your tires. You need a professional for this as well. I wouldn't do it on my own, especially on the first time when you're trying to purchase a home. So after you have squared away all the financing and received your pre-approval letter, you hire a real estate agent because they're going to know the local neighborhoods, they're going to know the average pricing, they're going to know what it takes. Again, the contingencies that you're going to need to put in the contract. They're going to be able to help you negotiate your contract and negotiate what items, even if you have items where you have to do renovations, they're going to be able to help you negotiate that and be able to understand how much it's really going to cost for you to live in this home. So it's important to hire someone who is a professional and who is well aware of the neighborhood that you're looking for. This will help you save a tremendous amount of time and hassle. You can also, I would say you should look for items as well yourself, but like online, but you're going to want the real estate agent in order to really close the deal because it's important for you to, like I said, have a professional who's going to be able to get you to the place of closing. And you're going to want to create that relationship at least 2 months out because again, it's going to take time. I know, for example, one of my friends, she had her pre-approval, she was looking for a home, and even though she hired a real estate agent, it still took her about 7 to 8 months to get from that initial offer to closing. It wasn't because she, wasn't focused on it, but because she ended up in a bunch of bidding wars. So you're going to get to a place where you're going to want that professional there to really help you through the process because it's not going to be one through. So you're going to need somebody who's going to be equipped with helping you understand the process and helping you move from the place of the desire for a home and actually have the keys to the home. And after you complete that task 1 month out or 2 months out, the month before you get to that place of closing, you want to be able to put your contingencies in writing. Typically real estate closings take between 30 to 45 days after signing your purchase agreement. However, you want to be clear that what the contingencies are just in case you want to walk away from a deal. These are going to be home inspections, etc. Because once you can look at the house from the outside, but you really don't know what's going on inside. I know if I walk into a house today and I don't know if the electrical is brand new or not, so you're going to want to make sure you have these contingencies in place because they can cost you a tremendous amount of money in the end. And part of that also, you want to make sure that everything in the home has certificates of completion or permits from the town or village that the home is in. So prior to being the director of the land bank, one of my positions at the town of Kingston as an attorney was to deal with building violations. And oftentimes we have people who have purchased homes and they didn't have proper inspections or they didn't have an engineer who actually looked at the home. So they ended up purchasing the home and nothing in the home had a permit. And now because you are possessing it, you have to pay to correct all of those issues. So we've had plenty of, no one's going to say, oh, you didn't know, okay, that's okay, that's not going to happen. It's going to go all in the shoulder. So it's very, very important for you to have not just a home inspection, but a really good title company that does the research to make sure that the title is clear, to make sure that these, when you permits, I would also suggest hiring an engineer, which isn't not necessarily, but it isn't required, but having an engineering report is to be very important, especially if you're going to buy a home on the South Shore near the water. You're going to want to make sure that you understand the engineering of your property and flooding, and make sure you have the proper insurance. Yes. I know also in my role, this is being my role, is that a lot of homes that were damaged in Sandy, although they may have been substantially damaged, a lot of people didn't know, because they never went to the building department to check their file, because of various, reasons, and now they're trying to sell their homes and they're unable to, because although the home may look pretty from the inside or the outside, like I said, there are no permits, or you never rectified the FEMA letter, and if that doesn't happen, then you're gonna wanna make sure that, that can cost you a lot of money, because I've seen it time in and time out, and, the most places where that occurs is the kitchen and in the basement. And if you pull a file, and you yourself can pull the file as well, I would suggest that. You can go down to the local municipality, to the building department, and just ask them, let me see the file. And to me, if someone has owned a home, let's say for 30, 40 years, and you don't see a permit since 1972, you should be scared. Because likely there was some type of updating that occurred in the house, whether it was changing the stove, whether it was changing, something with the roof, or adding, like I said, unfinishing the basement or something. Those are going to be very important. I know specifically in the town that we're in right now, the town of North Hempstead, I would say if you do anything, if people did anything other than just paint their house, they probably need a permit. And whether it's, changing the stove out, you need a permit. If you have gas, yes. If you change the sink out, you need a permit. You need a plumber to make sure that there's no leaking, etc. If you change your boiler, your hot water heater, all those things require permits. So you're going to want to make sure that the permit is filed for each of those items as you go forward. I saw a hand over here for the question is, what are the responsibilities of the realtor, and do they have to, should they know his permits, et cetera, on the home? Yes, but that's not their, they don't have to. They can say the home is without the proper permit. There's going to need to be a certificate of occupancy, but it's not their job to do, it's their job to make sure the title is clear, but it's not their job to really focus on the nitty-gritty of, is there a permit for every single thing in the home? So the licensed broker or realtor will not be enough for that. Mrs. Young. So, Sister Kiana said basically that it's the due diligence of the homeowner and the honesty of the homeowner that you're really working on. And that is the truth, because, like I said, we've seen plenty of time, even with rentals, realtors will come and say, well, they told me that they had a rental permit. I didn't know they didn't have it. So they're really working on what the homeowner or what the individual who is in control of the home is telling them. That's why it's important for you to have the information that I give you today, that power, so that you can really understand exactly what you need in order to make sure that you're going to be in a safe situation financially, in a safe situation in general.
How old the roof is, and on it, also with the pipes.
Yeah, so a home inspection is going to tell you if there's issue with the roof, if there's any damages in the home, termites, etc., but they're not going to tell you that if there's a permit or not. A lot of times they'll go above and beyond, which is what I'm telling you.
The homeowner's cue to zero in
Their cue is I want to sell this house. Their cue is I want to make sure that you are safe and you can
Yes.
The cue is I don't want to have to spend this extra $20,000 to get a permit for this basement and this kitchen that I remodeled and the dormers that I added on the house and the extra bedroom I built over the garage because we had a fourth kid that we didn't expect.
Wow.
Yeah, it's done for the purpose of it. That's what I'm saying. You need another level. I would suggest another level beyond the home inspection because that's just basic. That's again, like Sister Kendall said, it's visual. They're not getting down to the nitty gritty, which is why it's important for you, if you can afford it, to have an engineer and have engineers report because they're going to go to that next level. Even the title search companies. And one part of my role, again, to kind of fix that was being the Chief Records Access Officer, which means I responded to every FOIL. So every time someone wanted to purchase a home, they had to submit to me, is there a violation on this house? There are, let's say, 20, 30, 40,000 houses in the town. Do you think the inspector went to every home? No. And if they didn't go, I don't have information that says that there's a violation because they never got in. Yes. Yes, you pay for that. So it's important because even if you have to shell out $1,500 or $2,000 for the engineering report, that can save you $20, $30, $40, $50,000 down the line.
And also at this step, do you think you got any money down?
It depends. So, for your first question, how much is going to cost for an engineer, that's going to vary depending on the engineer and the engineering firm. That's going to cost you a couple $1,000s. It's not going to be cheap. It's not going to be $200, $300, probably going to be more between $2,000 to $3,000. But again, like I said, that report, although it may look like a book, can save you tens of thousands of dollars in the interim. I know for my role now, before I take on any home, I have an engineer's report, I have an architect go do a visual inspection and draw a scope of work, and I also do analysis in terms of whether it be environmental issues or contamination or whatever, because I can simply have it from like a leaking boiler. So I do that before I take on any property. Yeah.
You might actually save money by spending money on engineering.
That is correct. Like Sister Kiana said, you can use that engineering report as leverage for negotiating the price of the property. And like she said, negotiating it down, negotiating the cost that it's going to take to permit everything or fix it because they decided to do it without those mechanisms. Because a lot of times people will build things and even though it looks nice, it's not built according to code, so they will make you take it out.
Right.
They will make you rip it out and then you have to rebuild it to according to the specifications that are in the code for the municipality that you're in. Any other questions at this point? So again, with regards to the contingencies, you're going to make sure you spell them all out in writing. And so that when the transaction doesn't go as planned, you can get your deposit back. So I have a friend that's actually in the midst of that now. She started to buy a home, she put down a deposit, and get out most of her savings, and put down a deposit, and then the sale fell through. And now she's trying to fight to get her money back because she didn't make sure she had the proper contingencies in her contract. And she's a lawyer. So you are armed with the power to know that today. Because she's been fighting for about $15,000 for the last 2 months to get it back.
Should you have a lawyer write up your contingency contract, or because I would assume the lawyer is somehow
It's important to have a lawyer. A lawyer is going to be extremely important when you are drawing up your contract, when you're going towards close, and to be at your closing. I would not purchase a home without a lawyer who specifically operates in real estate. I'm an attorney, I would never try to do a closing for myself. I have no idea what I'm doing. You're going to want to make sure it's someone who's been practicing in that area and has done it on multiple occasions, because you want to make sure if you need to get your deposit back, you can get it back. If you need certain contingencies because you have that individual report that says there are issues, like all that stuff is able to occur because they remember to put that inside of your contract. All this research, like I said, is going to help you save a ton of money. That's 1 month out. Next, the last, sorry, yes. Once you get it, it's good. But, yeah, so what's going to happen is the certificates for a home, you get certificates of completion and certificates of occupancy. Certificates of completion are going to show you that whatever construction or plumbing that was done in the home was completed according to the plans and according to the rules and regulations and the code of the municipality. The certificate of occupancy is going to tell you that you actually occupy the home. And you're going to make sure that exists too here. Your realtor should actually make sure that is there, but the certificate of occupancy is very important because you can't live in the home. And I've seen people do renovations or purchase homes with no certificate of occupancy, and we tell them, you gotta get out your house. Like, we will rent part of your house unless you fix it. So, for instance, we had an individual who, they were part of the problem, but they overbuilt their house. So the house, was supposed to be, let's say, for example, 3,000 square feet, but they built it 3,500 square feet. And the town code says you only have a 3,000 square foot house. So what are you doing with this extra 500 feet? Now you can't get a certificate of occupancy because there's too much on the home. And that can happen even with additions. So what you're gonna wanna do is make sure that there's a certificate of occupancy, because what will occur is you can't live in the home, or they'll make you repurchase all that extra space at an exorbitant amount of money that is like thousands of dollars per foot. So I remember that individual, I think she had to pay $120,000 to the town in order to stay in the house. And cut off, and take a garage out and make it a carport because it cut down the square feet.
Okay, so would it be better just to purchase land and building and stuff?
That comes with another host of issues because, you have contractors involved, you want to make sure no one's stealing your money. That's again, more contracts, etc.
Is it more money?
It depends. Depends what they're doing. I would say, for me, in my new role, our new builds, which are modular builds, meaning they are manufactured homes that are built in off-site, in a location, kind of like snap them together and pull them together. That costs us about $300,000 per house to build. And stick build is going to be around the same price, 300 plus. And that's for a basic, 3-bedroom, 1-bath house on Long Island. So it's going to cost you, if you're going to build from the ground up, at least $300,000. You got to take into account delays, labor, et cetera, et cetera. So it depends on the finances, it depends on what you're going to work through, but it can cost an extreme amount of money to do stick build. So we're going to talk about affordability a little bit in this conversation. But the last step in order to get to the place where you're going to own your own home is to keep everything status quo with your finances when you're waiting to close. So right before closing, the bank will rerun your credit and they will want to look at your bank statements again. So if you had $20,000 sitting there, they can give $20,000 reserve, and then you went and bought $10,000 worth of who knows what, that's going to be a problem for them. So you're going to want to make sure you keep everything clear and you're still making those same purchases and sticking to that same budget that you stuck to 6 or 8 months ago, so the bank is not nervous when they get to that place.
Right.
No new loans of credit, no new major purchases, or even closing account can delay your closing. So, you might want to close a credit card or something like that. That could delay your closing. You want to make sure, like I said, everything stays status quo, so they will get nervous. So, those are the 7 steps in order to prepare yourself to get to home ownership. But I want to now shift to resources. So in my capacity as the executive director of the Land Bank, the land bank, we focus on affordability. So we all know that Long Island is not cheap. I believe the median home price in Long Island is about $409,000 currently. And there's an uptick in prices because people are starting to buy a lot more and the market is starting to go back up. So it's about $309,000 and $409,000, somewhere in the high threes in Suffolk County. And then, yes, there is a housing crisis. That's what we would call it. There's a housing crisis, especially when it comes to affordability, because you're not going to see that much new construction here in Long Island. So we have our stock, but we still get more people coming every day. So it's hard for us, it's hard for people to find places to live, especially places that are affordable. So the next step is you're going to want to leverage your resources. To me, that is very important, and you're going to want to start that probably, I would say, 9 to 12 months out. And when I say leveraging your resources, it's down payment assistance if you need it. It's making sure you're looking out for a good mortgage product. So I focused on Nassau County, but they also have similar programs in Suffolk. Nassau County and the Long Island Home Partnership have a program for first-time home buyers, and they will give you up to $25,000 in down payment assistance. They also provide up to, I believe, additional $5,000 for closing. Suffolk County has a similar program, and Suffolk County also has a community development department that has grants available for first-time home buyers in some of their specific towns. This is important if you qualify for it. It is a percentage of, I believe it's about 80% of the average median income on the island. So it's going to depend on your home size. But this product is good because you can use that in conjunction with the money that you have, and that will help you bring that price down on your home.
Is this kind of like a loan? It's like they give you a loan.
So it's not a loan, it's a grant. The catch is, you have to stay, the home that you're purchasing has to be owner occupied, meaning you have to live in the house, you're not renting it out. And I believe you have to stay in the home for 10 years, and after 10 years, the grant, it becomes a grant. So in theory, in the beginning, it's kind of like a loan that has zero interest and has no payments. But if you sell the home before the 10 years, or you start renting the home and they catch you, then they're going to ask for their money back.
So the grant, there's no, like, extra fees, like, taxes?
Okay, so the question is with the grant, are there any extra fees? No. There might be an application fee, I think it's about $75, but there are no additional taxes that you have to pay on the grant or any payments that will be made on it.
And what about, like, the yearly taxes? Is that included in your mortgage, or is that separate?
So the question is, are your taxes going to be included in your mortgage?
Yes.
Yes, because the bank is going to want to make sure that you're paying the taxes, because the home, you can be paying the principal and not paying the taxes, and the county that you live in can take your home by way of tax liens or tax deed sale. So it's going to be bundled together.
So are you supposed to look into that before you receive it?
No, your realtor, when they do the title search, they'll make sure that there's no lien in the house. They'll make sure that the title is clear so it can be transferred to you. But what you do want to do is take into account taxes when you're looking for a home, because the mortgage could be $800, but the taxes could be $16,000 a year, and now your mortgage went up $1,200 a month.
What would be a good price?
Okay, so the question would be a good price. You gotta figure out, it's gonna be the base of your budget. Because you can have taxes in Nassau County anywhere, the lower is probably like 10 to $50,000, $60,000 in taxes a year. So that's gonna be like you live in Sands Point and you got like 8 acres in your water. But it could be anywhere between $10,000+ in taxes per year, which again, you have to count that into the payments that you're making every month. That's going to be going into your mortgage, but you know, the principal might be, like I said, $800 a month, but then you add that with the taxes, and now your mortgage is about $2,000 a month. Yes, homeowner's insurance, they have mortgage insurance as well. You have your down payment as well, so all those things you're gonna wanna take into account.
I can't
when
get back
you're
into
doing
what
your
I
budget.
have, but.
Also with the down payment assistance, you're gonna wanna look into employer programs. Some employers provide their employees with down payment assistance, and they vary in different amounts. Also, another thing you can leverage is if you happen to have a Section 8 voucher for rent, they will convert that and give you money towards your down payment. So a Section 8 voucher can be leveraged for home ownership when it comes to time.
Is it, I don't know if it's not understanding, but like, is that something that's like, you see often, like, someone will section straight to a house?
So the question is that would you see often for someone to go from Section 8 to a house? No, not necessarily, but I do, you know, my office happens to be in the Section 8 office, and there are people who have been able to leverage their vouchers to put additional monies to purchase a home.
So is that for like,
No, it's a grant, and they'll give you just the finances as a grant towards the home, or towards your down payment.
well, what's the, you know, I feel like
That's going to depend on the homeowner and what they want. So, it's going to really depend on.
is that a good thing or is that?
It depends on what works for you and what works for your finances. Yeah, it depends on your budget. A lot of times people do rent to own because they can't afford that down payment. And so that's why it's important to be able to do research and, like I said, leverage those resources and grants to have down payment assistance. I know one of the women that I work with works in the Section 8 office. She had an individual who was able to leverage $65,000 worth of grants for down payment. So that's going to drastically break down her monthly payment and the purchase price of her home. So there are programs out there, you just have to look for them. And a few of them I have put down here for you today. So again, Nassau County, and everyone, whoever you want to purchase a home in Nassau County or your resident of Suffolk County, they all have these different down payment assistance programs. So you want to make sure you do your research and listen and apply for those. Another great product as you can leverage is Sony May. The Sony May mortgage product is a product of the state. They also offer you $15,000 down payment assistance, and again with them you can also bundle. So you put that 15 plus that 25. This product is awesome because they don't write to your FICO score, so your credit score doesn't really change the interest rate. And then also, if you purchase a vacant home, they'll give you a $20,000 grant in order to do the rehabilitation of the product. They also offer a lot of advantages for those individuals who are veterans. And with that product, they have 120% AMI, so an individual can make up to $115,000 a year and still qualify. Lastly, we have the FHA loan program, and again, that program is out there for people who also don't have high credit scores. So you can have a credit score as low as in the 5s, and it will only require you to put down a 10% down payment. And again, with that program, you can also leverage your resources in order to get to the place of home ownership. So, last but not least, again, if you check your credit, determine your budget, shop multiple lenders, hire a real estate agent, make sure you have the right contingencies and keep your finances status quo, and leverage all of your resources, you'll be able to purchase a home within the next 12 months or whenever you're ready. Are there any more questions? So, this is Deanna mentioned the NACA program. The NACA program is an interesting program. It is a good program. It is going to take you 6 to 12 months in order to make sure you can qualify. So you're going to have to do your research and make sure that to see if that product really works best for you. And that acronym is NACA. So you can do the research, and they require you to have a very low down payment or really no down payment, and they'll help you finance 100% of the purchase price, which is unusual. Any other questions? unfortunately, you have to pick people who definitely give them the information, and they make the information how much you can afford. Whatever.
Would you say, let's say if you did, like, these grants, right, you don't have to pay for that, right? It's like, for 10 years or, right? So is that saying that, like, you have to pay it in payments, or would you like, get the grant, fall into some cash, and then just pay off the house?
Each grant is gonna have their own contract, so you're gonna wanna pay attention to what is in the contract. When you get the grant, which is gonna determine how the payment restructure will be if you violate the terms of the agreement. So I wanna thank everybody for attending the Homeownership 101 workshop. Thank you for coming out to this.